Yo, welcome to This Can't Be Adulting, the podcast where two guys who probably should have it all figured out absolutely don't.
Careers, money, relationships. No one handed us a manual, so we're figuring it out the only way we know how, with real talk, deep dives, and a whole lot of laughs.
I'm Herb.
And I'm Derek. And if you're out here wondering, am I doing this right? Trust us, you're not alone.
So hit play, relax, and let's figure this out together. Yo, welcome back to another episode of This Can't Be Adulting.
Woo, woo, woo.
Derek, we're here at episode 4. I don't know how long we're going to plan on, are we going to do this every episode where we give the number of the episode? We don't know how long this is going to go, so until...
Yeah. No, we're going to keep doing it. It makes me feel good.
Coming back to you.
We accomplished something. We are number 4. We still here.
Yo, it's going to be like in episode, 2 years from now. Like, yo, welcome back to This Can't Be Adulting, episode 600.
I feel like a lot of podcasts. I feel like Joe Rogan's podcast does it. Not that I support Joe Rogan's podcast. Fuck that dude. But I feel like he's also like episode 677 or something. But
okay.
Man, I'm with it, bro. Good to be back with you, man.
Man, it is good. It's always good to be back on the couch here. Bring some more, interesting topics I think we have to share today, and really looking forward to connecting with us again. This has been good.
Before we get into those topics, just a couple of things here. Feedback from some folks. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of leg showing here. You're gonna get a lot of leg. I'm sorry, it looked weird, but I was like, damn, there's a whole lot of leg. Secondly, I fidget a lot. Holy shit, Herb is the most zen, chill, still guy in these podcasts. Like, he doesn't move. He sits like that the whole time. And me, I'm uncomfortable. Get my legs, get this and that. I'm moving my microphone. I had a friend, after watching us and listening, was like, stop fidgeting with your microphone, Derek. I'm like, yo, I can't help it. So we're working on it. Low budget.
Low budget. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So we don't really have the chairs for this, but we're going to figure this out. And also, we're going to get something for this wall back there. I promise.
It's so funny you saying that. That was going to be my next thing. Like, to everyone that has looking at this blank wall, trust me, this is a blank canvas.
Yes.
If you would love to send us some art or anything that you would love to maybe see on this Can't Be Adulting, feel free. Just slide in, leave a comment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say we're low budget here.
Yeah, we low budget. Or we can just set up a GoFundMe like my old girl's doing up in, wherever is it happening at. We can set up a GoFundMe, and maybe you guys can send out some support. We'll get a sign up here.
Or just like and subscribe so that we get some advertisers that'll reach out to us to pay for some money, though.
There we go.
I love it, man. Yeah, we want to definitely address those topics, but or those couple of things we jumped into it. But Herb, man, what we talking about today, man? I'm gonna let you run this show right now, man.
All right. So if you've been listening to a couple of episodes, at the very beginning of one of the episodes, I kind of disclosed that I was out here, looking for my next career path and what that was gonna be. And I thought this was a great topic for us to start just talking about, like, job experiences, quitting versus getting fired, and things that go into that, and then like even speaking on having imposter syndrome and things like that. So I think that was like, just because of the situation that I was in, I think this is a great time to have this conversation, and quitting versus getting fired. I know so many people have dealt with these experiences, and we just want to kind of share some of our experiences, see if that maybe aligns with some of your guys' experiences, and just have an open conversation on it.
I think it's a good topic to talk about, and this is all Herb's idea, by the way, so I love it, because what we want to convey with this show is just real life situations, real life challenges that we're experiencing, and that we want to be open and talk about, that we know hundreds, thousands, and millions of Americans, I'm not saying millions of thousands, are listening to us, but people out there every day are experiencing it. So why not have a damn conversation about it?
Absolutely, especially in this economy, because a lot of cuts we've seen.
Boom, and that's what I was going to say. We live in such an uncertain economy. I'm going to tell you something right now. I have never felt so much uncertainty with my job and my career as I do now.
Really?
Never, ever felt so much uncertainty. Now, part of the reason is because of the career that we're both in. Yep. We're both in sales.
Yep.
And as you guys all know, once we started coming back from COVID, a lot of the layoffs have been in 2 major industries. There's been layoffs everywhere, right? But the 2 major industries have been recruiting, massive layoffs. They're probably getting hit the most, technical recruiting, whatever you want to call it. And then sales jobs, tech sales jobs, massive layoffs, because the economy's been shrinking a little bit. Not so many companies are putting in capital to buy new technology. So who's the first one that's going to go when a technology company is not doing well? It's the salespeople.
Yep, absolutely.
And so that's where Herb and I are falling into, or fall into. And I think that's why Herb is saying he was looking for a new career and all that. I'll let him speak to that. From my perspective, I've experienced both. I've quit and I've gotten fired or laid off. Just getting fired or laid off, and they've been two of the most. I don't want to use this word for some reason. Scariest keeps popping up in my mind. But I just want to say, I guess, the most obviously uncertain and tumultuous times of my life. And, starting off with, I quit. So I was working for a large company for 11 years where I started my sales career. And I got to a point in 2021 where I just was very unhappy. And I'm like, I don't like this shit. Like, I'm not liking it. I don't like selling. I was selling IT hardware. It just wasn't fulfilling me. And I was like, I want to do something that fulfills me a little bit more. And I just quit cold turkey without a backup plan, with some savings, but not anything crazy. But I was at wit's end where I was like, I'm out. Full disclosure, I had the privilege of doing that. Yeah. I realized that not a lot of people out there can just absolutely quit their job.
Yep.
It's something like 60% of Americans live check by check. And don't religiously quote me on that number. It's something like that. We got to look it up. But that's a scary thing, man.
Oh, yeah.
60% of Americans can't quit their job even if they find it miserable or hate it.
Do you feel like that's a system that's purposely put in place to keep us there? And what I'm hinting at here is that you see a lot of stuff that's like, and as America, as consumers, we're in a society that they want us to stay in debt.
Yep.
Like, it's purposely set up that way that we're always, needing to get the next check to pay for whatever the next, bills, life, whatever expenses may be. So that it incentivizes us to keep working, because if we had all the money saved, we can start retiring at, if everything was cost of living was reasonable per se, and, people were making, great living wages, normal living wages, then, maybe they wasn't incentivized people to work to the 65, 62, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I think
and look, we're on a political show, but the reality is that what you guys or what a lot of people might think politics is really just life and humanity.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying is spot on. Yep. From what I have witnessed in my almost 40 years of life, through culture, in society, through work, through career, through working with multiple people, through being managed by multiple people, at the end of the day, what these companies and corporations want to do to us is work us, overwork us, and make us tired, where we cannot challenge the status quo. Because the status quo right now is capitalism. You can't afford to.
Yep.
It's capitalism. It's profits above everything.
Yes.
And that's all these businesses care about. And the only way you can challenge that status quo is if you have the energy to do so.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so to your point, I think that's just, bringing in your point, like, we're overtired, we're overworked, and they want us to continue just working so that we don't have that time to do anything like that. And so there's very few of us that do.
Yeah.
At least not enough.
Yep.
Not enough that can that can do that, and I was lucky to be able to be one of the ones that could quit, because I did have some savings, I did have a lot of that, but like, again, I'm one of the minorities, and I realized that when I quit, like, I realized how lucky I was that I could be like, you know what, I'm just gonna quit without having a backup job. Like, that's crazy to think that people just can't do that, and so people get stuck in this misery, because I was feeling it, bro. My mental health was struggling. Even worse than what it normally is, because I struggle with my mental health every day.
Yeah.
And it was struggling even worse. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, what about these folks that have to work for a fucking a boss who's a piece of shit, a misogynist, a racist, and they just have no other way out? And I think this country tries to tell you, if you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you can go do whatever you want. To an extent, yes, you can, but like, it's so much more nuanced and complicated than that.
Yep.
So I will say that's one of the big lessons that I learned from quitting, was just how privileged I was, but also how ugly it can be for most people, because we wonder why we have a health crisis, a mental health crisis. And I'm not saying it's all just because of career, but that's a big contributor to it, because your job, what you do every day, that's such a big part of your life.
Right.
And if you don't have some good semblance of balance within it, that's a problem.
Yep.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think in just staying on, the balance, and we get into the like work-life balance. I think that's something that's really tough. However, I will also say that, to me, I don't necessarily feel like I ever struggled with the work-life. Fortunately, I haven't had to struggle with the work-life balance, because I felt like every place that I've worked, fortunately enough, for the most part, almost every place I've worked, it came down to the people around me, and that almost became my life. Like me and you met through work. Like some of the greatest friendships, the only friendships I really have here in Austin are all work related. Like that, all these friendships came through work. So the work life balance for me, I've never really struggled with, just because my work has become my life, and I know that's like, it's not like I'm doing something that's we work in the same end or same field, IT. So it's not like I was doing something purposeful or meaningful, and that's not why it made me. That's why made like to have a balance. It wasn't necessarily that. It's just because my work colleagues became my social colleagues, and that's what it's kind of how it's set up for me. However, as far as like experiences when it comes to like quitting versus getting fired, the job that I've only quit one job in my life, really. And even quitting, that was just to a point where it was just I didn't like the role, which was also, I guess it wasn't so much the role, but I didn't like the company, what I was selling, and it was just a very boring.
Was this recent?
It was in 2022. So I was
okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. So it was selling like mail machines and communication software platforms, stuff like that. Nothing exciting by any means. So that was like the first job. Like, no, I don't like this. I'm done with this. However, that gave me a lot of anxiety, because before I found my next role, that it was probably 6 months for me to find my next role. And I mean, during that time, I'm like, it did get to a couple of times where I was, by the end of it, I'm like, man, I'm going to have to just take anything. And it's almost, and that anxiety had built up, and it's like, man, I quit on purpose, and now I'm getting into myself to where I'm about to have to take on another take on another role that I don't even like, and I'm going full circle. Like, what did I really gain from that? So that was one of those things I kind of struggled with, as far as my experience of quitting a job that wasn't fulfilling. Now getting fired, I got a lot more, I won't say getting fired, but getting laid off. Unfortunately, I've been a part of, like, during COVID, I worked for the company that unfortunately got laid off. During previous to that, worked with another company that they just did some cutbacks and things like that. Then I've also had some experience where I just was not a good employee, and shit, that didn't happen.
Well, at least you can admit that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll even give you a funny story here about me getting fired. Once I worked at a hotel, and this was before that. This was before I was diagnosed with some learning disabilities per se. That sounds so weird to say, like a learning, like I'm crazy ADHD, and I'm crazy. I'm a little bit dyslexic. So I'm working, as you can imagine, working at a hotel. I'm checking in people. And this was years ago when I first moved to Austin. And guests come in. It's a high class hotel. Guest comes in. She's not on the thing, but she's kind of giving me a little attitude. Yeah. She's not on the her name like Williams, and I was like, all right, fine. Like, it don't match up, but I'll give you the key anyways. Not knowing that I had already checked someone into this room, she walked in on some people.
No.
Fucking. That's what they were doing.
No.
Call from the room. She comes down pissed off. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And she's like, do you know what I just did? I just walked in. I'm like, what? So my manager called, and then sure enough, they came into the office. Like, yeah, Herb, we can't do that.
Oh, so no, Herb, I never heard this story.
True story.
Yeah, bro. This dude, bro, I would have had so much anxiety. Like, yo, I can't believe I did that. Yo, Herb.
Oh, my God. I was mortified.
Oh, my God.
And again, I didn't know. Like, I knew I've had, like, compensated for, 80. Like, I knew, like, I could be dyslexic at times, just seeing things different. And even 80, I've struggled to, like, have focus and stuff like that. So I've compensated for it. Like, I try to find ways to compensate it so it doesn't, happen. But yeah, sure enough, that happened, and that was one of my experiences.
Okay, well, you know what? Warranted to get fired.
Absolutely.
There we go. That's just wild. That's crazy, but that's hilarious. But it also brings up a big something that I want to decipher between two, because I think there is a difference between getting fired or getting laid off 15, 20 years ago versus where we are today. And I think I'm trying to bring it back to what I started off my conversation. I've never had more uncertainty in my career or in my job than I do now. And I don't necessarily mean in the sense of, yes, there's uncertainty because I know I don't want to do this, but I don't know what to do. But like, and actually keeping my job and having it secure. Yep. I think there was a time, especially when I met you, where, dude, like, we were partying Tuesday through Saturday and like showing up at the office hungover.
Oh, yeah.
I got stories where I was out till 5 a.m. and I had to be in there for 7 a.m. for freaking training. And I was there drunk out my mind.
And you were not alone.
Not alone. Like, at our company, mind you, this wasn't like it was like, oh, these guys are like, this company is wild, where there was just a lot of young kids. I don't want to say, wow, like it's unnormal. It's actually unfortunately normal, but a lot of young kids, you know, but I would be able to go in and I would kill the training. It wasn't like I wasn't doing my job. I was showing up. It is what it is. But never once did it come to my mind like, oh, I might get fired for this.
Yeah.
Oh, I might get let go for this.
That is fun. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And now, like, any little misstep, I'm like, oh, shit, they might let me off. Oh, damn, I said the wrong word on this call. And it's like, it's just the difference in the economy.
Yep.
Difference of where this country is politically, and a lot of things, especially post-COVID. There's just so much uncertainty that it's wild. So, because now, again, my uncertainty is, and I was laid off too, you know, talking what Herb was saying, I got laid off a couple years ago, which in my opinion was kind of unwarranted. And I don't know if a lot of people think that. I'm a very honest, real dude, but like I had the leading bookings on my team. I was tied with another person and they still let me go. And they let me go was because I had been there longer. Then the person that had the other highest bookings, he had just started. So like, we're not going to let him go. He just started. We got to give him a chance. And so essentially they let me go. They were good. Also, I come to find out, and again, this is a lot of companies do. I was making too much money.
Exactly.
So they let me go. It was a numbers game because they weren't hitting their numbers. They let me go, and they hired my backfill 2 months later for half of what I was making.
And there you go.
Shit was wild.
There you go. Right.
But I found that out. And so I'm not trying to go around it here, but like, the layoff was also handled much differently than my quitting. Even though I was ready for the quitting, I was more nervous about me quitting than I was about being laid off when I got laid off. Part of the reason is I had saved a little bit more. And also I knew I was going to be able to collect unemployment.
That's true too. Okay, yeah.
And unemployment isn't much, although Texas actually does a pretty decent job. Okay. I've heard of a lot of people like that have been laid off 8 months ago and they still haven't gotten a check from their state.
Damn, that's crazy.
Wow, we got our shit within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I submitted Super E and they gave me my shit. They didn't question it. And not that I was doing anything nefarious because I was doing everything I was asked for. But it was intense. But yeah, I just think we live in this time where there's a sense of shame that people carry too.
Absolutely. And I'll speak on that.
Yeah. So, I'll pause there from my perspective. What is this sense of shame? Are you saying the sense of shame that maybe you had, or do you want to just speak
Absolutely. So even like in this most recent situation where I was like laid off, and it was kind of similar in your situation where, you know, I was doing well as far as my overall number. I was lagging in another number, and it was a lot. This company had a lot of. It just been a very, very just run poorly, I would say, as far as people management. So then I was laid off. That came for me is like it was a lot of shame, and like from quitting, you know, that's my control. I think with the laying off part is not your control. So then it comes like, for me, I had to like, damn, like what's wrong with me? You know, I'm having success and then like they still don't want me. It's like that almost like, oh, they don't think I'm good enough. And then it also feeds into now I'm thinking like, damn, am I not good? Like that you have that insecurity of that. It like kind of comes at it's a chink in my armor where I'm like, damn, maybe I'm not as good at sales as I think I am, or I'm not, you know, maybe I wasn't worthy of, you know, having these type of roles, or I can't, you know, validate or, you know, making that type of money or whatever, you know, in that role. So it's kind of like for me, it was a shame. Like, dang, I don't even want to talk to friends. I don't want to go out anymore. And it's, you know, one of those things is that the reason why you don't want to go out is because I don't want people to like ask me like, oh, so hey, what do you do? Because that's one of the main questions that we ask somebody that we don't know is, what do you do? And why are we asking that question? So now I can gauge how I'm going to interact with you. And that right there was like, damn, now. And as a black man in today's society that's unemployed,
speak to it.
It is a certain level of shame that comes with that, especially if you're in a minority in a group and everybody's, you know, quote unquote successful in this group, and now they're like, oh, you're the black dude that don't got a job. So like that was a shameful thing. That was something I had to like tuck my pride to the side, and it was a hit in my ego, and that's, you know, something I had to deal with, and that was something I was dealing with. And I would say, yeah, shout out, congratulations. I don't have to deal with it anymore, but that was something I was dealing with until I got an offer. And now it's like, now that I got an offer, bro, it literally like a switch flipped in me to where I'm like, okay, now I can be back out again. Now I can have these conversations with people. Now I don't feel like such a shame because now I'm, you know, I have some employment, even if it's not something that I'm like passionate about, or like, oh, I done got into, you know, this, you know, something that I really, really love. It ain't even that. It's just the simple fact that like, okay, now you got this good job. You know, you got this good, you have this role that you can, like this status role that you can go out and feel comfortable having conversations with people with.
Okay. First of all, so much I want to touch on with what you just said. So much. congratulations, my guy.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Like,
you.
seriously,
Thank you.
big shout out. He got the offer, and it's always such a good feeling, a jubilating feeling.
Yes.
Having been through it twice too. You know, when I quit, I was off for 6 months. Getting that offer was like, yes, got it. Laid off 6 months, got the offer, yes, got it. I think you bring up a very good point about the relation between your career and who you are as an individual in society.
Yes.
Especially in Western society, in the United States of America, you're often messaged and told that your identity is tied to your career.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the worst messages to give people. And I think, again, this goes back to what I was mentioning, that people have mental health issues because of their careers, either being in their jobs, or not having one. People almost rather be sitting there miserable in a job just to say they have a job or a career outside of the money and outside of paying bills, but just to be able to say that.
Yep.
And I feel that to an extent. And then it goes exponentially further when you're talking about black and brown people in this country.
Yes.
Because black and brown people, unfortunately, by a lot of this country, have a stigma of being lazy or whatever you call
Exactly.
it. And so that's a burden that we have to carry on our shoulders.
Yep.
Right? And so I fully empathize with you from that perspective. It's funny because I've been saying this for quite some time now about this. Whenever you go into a new social interaction setting, like Herb said, if you ever notice, one of the first 2 questions is, what do you do for a living? I've been trying to break out of that habit for such a long time because I don't want to tie my identity to my career. So one of the first things I ask people is, what do you like to do for fun?
There we go.
Like, that's such an easier kind of icebreaker. Inevitably, you'll find out what someone does for a living and whatever the case is. With all that said, for as much anxiety as I have and for as much worry that has been instilled in me from just culture and my parents about worrying about what people think, I literally love to say that I'm not working to
Really?
people because it gives me a sense of power. For example, when I got laid off, I never once thought I got laid off for me. With that said, I knew I wasn't the greatest employee. Like, I knew I could have done more, but I was measuring myself against everyone else, and I'm like, well, nobody else was really out there killing me. So like, this wasn't a me thing. Like, I know I'm good. I know I'm smart. It never bothered me from that perspective, and I have I had never had a problem either when I was unemployed being like, oh, I'm unemployed right now. And I think it was more of a privilege thing, knowing that, like, financially I'm okay.
Yes.
Like, it's not like I'm struggling, and it's not like I'm not trying to find a job, but like, these are the times that we're in. So it's weird because, again, for as many things that I worry about and I care about, like, that just was never one of them for me. Like, I might be quitting my job here soon. It's just not something new, even if someone from my company watches this podcast.
Please do.
They know I've given them an August 1st a date of me leaving. And, like, I'm okay even after that, even though it'll be 3 times in, like, 4 years of not having a job. I'm okay with going out in the world. And, I mean, what do you do? Well, I'm in between jobs right now. I'm trying to find out my passion.
Yeah.
And I just think it's very interesting that you brought that up because I didn't know that you really felt that way. You hinted it to me a little bit, but it's super interesting, just human psychology in general.
Yeah, I mean, because like you say, I'm glad you said that because one of the first things, like, going out, just recently I was out in Phoenix with my girlfriend and her CEO and all their executive group was there, and it's like within every single conversation, it kind of within the first meeting, it led right back to, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh my gosh. So, like, now we go here, like, I'm an account executive by trade, but currently I'm trying to figure out what the next opportunity is going to be, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So it's like, man, that it just it felt so different, now, like, looking back, like, okay, now that I do have opportunity, like, all right, now I feel like completely different. Like, say if it happened immediately, like, once you get an offer, like, okay, now I feel like, I don't know, like, I feel like, oh, God's power again, or like, I don't feel like I can come back out. Like, I feel like I was getting more recluse as I, as it getting further and further. And so now I'm like, all right, I can come back out and do more things.
Would you say you feel like a more valuable and contributing member of society?
Absolutely.
Is that what it is?
And ain't even necessarily society, even just like to my mom, to my family.
Yeah.
Like, those
fair
people.
enough. To something.
Yes.
To something outside of you. And I get that. On a human level, I get that because I feel like that on a lot of things. I just think that it's very unfortunate that that's the value that we put on human beings. Because at the end of the day, bro, we're just human beings. And regardless on what you do or don't do for a living, and I'm not speaking necessarily to you, I'm talking to everybody in general, just a life lesson that I've learned as I've gotten older. Again, a lot easier said than done. So I'm preaching right now. Doesn't mean that I fully practice it. I'm trying every day. But, like, your value is not on your job. Your value is not on the money you're able to bring in. Your value is just on you being born and taking up space as a human being. And that could be misconstrued because people are going to be like, oh, so that means you can just do nothing all day. No, just be a kind human being. Have the right intentions and try to be a better person every day. I know that sounds all hippie, and I think someone gave me this term too, granola. Like somebody was like, "Oh, that person's super granola." I'm like, "Crunchy granola." I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I guess it means like hippie or some shit.
Oh, you just hit me on the something.
Crunchy granola. I know it sounds all that, but like, we just live in such a society that values individualism and values what are you going to do for me tomorrow. And that's just a very bad place to be, I think, in my opinion. And I'm trying to break that, even though we have to kind of fit into certain social norms, and I get that. But, like, I don't know. That's just my message with it all.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, even something that we could, maybe all of us can try to do as we, maybe a takeaway is that, like, maybe not leading, when we're meeting new strangers or you're meeting someone new, like, not leading with the question of what do you do, as far as work, is just asking, maybe, like saying, what are you interested in? What's something you're working on? Like, there's several different questions I've started to see on a few TikToks that's like is a better way of asking somebody. And if they want to tell you, if they want to lead with their profession, then they'll be able to do that. But they also give them the opportunity to lead with something else.
You leave it open-ended for them.
There we go.
That's
Absolutely.
a good one. And I think that's a good segue into our next topic, like a really good segment. And you brought it up in the beginning, is this idea of, not this idea, but like imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Right? And this so many Americans, so many people around the world have imposter syndrome. For those of y'all who don't know, just in case you don't know, I know Herb will he does all our editing, by the way. This dude's 65% of our company. I just show up when he tells me to, and
That's
I talk.
called talent over there. That's the talent right
This
there.
is the moneymaker. So he'll pop up the formal definition, but imposter syndrome, to my example, is feeling like you're an imposter in your everyday life, particularly your job and your career, even when evidence shows that you're not and that you're doing a really good job.
Yep.
So a lot of us suffer from it. I can tell you for sure I suffer from it 100% and have for a very long time, and at least in certain aspects of my life. But I guess, how true is it? Have you tried to examine it? Have you not tried to examine it? And I guess the question is for you, Herb, do you have imposter syndrome?
Absolutely. I think I definitely say, like, and it kind of goes back to, like, imposter syndrome, I think, is a direct correlation between tying that into, like, your tying in your worth, your profession as your worth. Like, if you feel like your profession is going to be kind of dictating who you are, that identity that you hold to that profession, then it opens up the opportunity, or opens up space for imposter syndrome, where you feel like it creates that anxiety, and you start to comparing yourself to others around you, or even others that aren't even around you. Like, you just start getting your own head to where you think, like, for my experience, I would say this. I'm starting to think, like, okay, I look around and nobody, especially as a minority, I look around and nobody looks like me. Now, that's, you would, some people may look at that and say, hey, I think that should show that, how challenging it was. It could have been challenging to get there for you to be in this space with all these people that don't look like you. It must have had a different challenging road to get there. Where I look at it, sometimes I can look at it and be like, damn, nobody looks like me. I don't know if I'm as good as they are. They golf. I'll give you some examples of where I feel like I'm like, oh my God, I'm nothing like these people, and I'm just like over here playing it. Like, a lot of people I work with in these roles are like huge golfers. I don't golf. I'm not a big. There's nothing I've never golfed, so it's just not something I do.
Well, you never golfed?
Nah, I've played a few rounds, but never really like I've never really gotten out there. I don't golf like that. I wasn't in a frat. A lot of people, come from. Although I was on the team,
we were on frats.
It's different.
You were on the football team, I was on the soccer team. That was my frat.
Absolutely. That became my frat.
But like an actual,
frat.
Like an actual.
Like, I don't come from like a frat, so it's not like, I wasn't in that type of things. And it's like, again, I didn't come from like a lot of these different, like, I didn't come from the same background as a lot of people that I grew up or that I work around. So then it just made me feel like, damn, do I even belong here? And it's almost this like feeling of like, that's where the imposter syndrome come in. And like, I feel like, dang, do I belong because I don't look anything like the people that's around me?
Oh, wow. That's fascinating to me, because our imposter syndromes are coming from two different places.
Okay.
Which we meet at the middle, but they're coming from two different places. So I do find that interesting. So for you, it's just about the people around you, and do we come from the same place? And if we don't, and most people don't come from the same place, haven't had the same experiences, so that makes you feel like an imposter because of that.
Like, dang, do I belong? Nobody looks like me.
Do I belong?
Like,
Interesting.
They know something that I feel like, oh man, they know way more than I know about this because they all know each other. They all are in the group, and I'm like coming in from the outside, and I'm like, man, do I?
But you don't feel like you question your ability to actually do the job necessarily, or you do question it because of all those things we just talked about?
You know, that's interesting because I don't ever feel like it gets in the way. Let me take that back. I think the imposter syndrome that I feel sometimes in the jobs is that we work with a lot of technical. We work in IT, and you assume that speaking to an IT director or engineers or these people with these specific titles that they have this level of IQ that's
beyond yours,
beyond
or something.
mine,
Yeah, right.
per se. So then I'm like, oh man, like I'm going in to talk to a guy about their network per se, and he's a network engineer. What can I really tell? What can I bring? What's the value I can bring? And that some levels of imposter syndrome I feel like I have in that aspect when it comes to the technical aspect, but then also quickly realize I'll start having those conversations. I actually do know a lot more than I think I know, which Dunning-Kruger. We'll talk about that later. And then, but also, it ain't about, people ain't trying to figure out what I know. They're trying to figure out like
What you don't know?
how I can help.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I think it's one of those things like people don't care what you know till they know that you care. It's like that's
That
what
you
I'm
wanna help,
saying
right,
right there.
yeah.
So like they don't care that what I know. They just want to know that I care and I'm trying to help them. And I think that's where I'm able to overcome that imposter. I don't ever feel that way when I'm dealing with a customer. But I think the imposter syndrome, going back to it, I would say comes from just being in that environment, not necessarily from a performance.
Got you. Okay, no, that's eye-opening to me because I assumed everybody's imposter syndrome was the same or derived from the same place. And so I'm learning something here because I've obviously only operated from my own space of imposter syndrome-ness, for lack of not a correct word, but I'm making it up. I think I'm verbing a noun is what I did there.
You'll put it in there.
Yeah, or something, whatever you call it. But so from my perspective, my imposter syndrome is based off of my abilities.
Really?
It's not about where I'm from, where I'm not from. It really isn't about any of that. For me, I just feel like it's expectations that I put on myself, and it's expectations that I think others have of me of what my knowledge level should be and my ability should be like.
Really?
100%.
What are some like? Why do you think that's based? What's that based on? Like that?
Doing a therapy session here. Where does that come from? I think it comes from all the conversations we had just about my past and about the expectations to always be progressing in life, in some way, shape, or form, and for some reason I feel like I just haven't progressed as much as I would like to. But I think also the reality is where you and I are in Austin, Texas. With the people we're around, we are around a lot of high-performing individuals.
Yes.
Very high-performing individuals. And I don't feel like I've been able to keep up. And now some might argue, like, obviously you're doing fine, and I am doing just fine when you all think about it. But, like, particularly recently, I was around a bunch of high.
That's right. We went to Spain.
Yeah, for a big awards trip for a company that we used to be at, and there's everyone there were high performing, like the top 80 reps in the company, like absolutely smashing it. And I just feel like I've been in the game as long as a lot of them have, and I don't have as much to show. I feel like I've faked it till I maked it. Fake it till you make it, obviously, but and even now in my current job, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, okay, I've been in this for 15 years. They expect me to be doing enterprise account executive level things, putting together enterprise executive return on investments, total cost of ownerships, really being able to prospect properly. And it's like, I don't really know how to do that properly, I don't think. And like, do they think that I'm supposed to know? And like, I don't really know. And it sucks. Now, the other big thing is me having left the comfort of this massive company that I was at before, where we were well established. We had a name. I was hitting my number or going over my number at least 2 quarters of the year. And in the other quarters that I didn't, I was going no less than like 85%.
Right.
Since I've left, or like that last year that I was there, which kind of contributed to me leaving. And since I've left at every company, I haven't even gone 50% of my number.
Damn.
It's been insane. And the reality is it's not really my fault.
Yeah.
Yes, could I have done a lot of things differently? Sure, but that would have gotten me maybe 50% or 60%, but I would have never gotten close to 100%. Like, it's so much harder in the startup world and the smaller world, but I strongly believe that's contributed a lot to my imposter syndrome, because I'm like, yo, it's been like 5 years and I haven't even sniffed any of my numbers. And so it just makes me feel so, what am I doing? Like, I'm not doing this right. Like, I don't actually belong here, type of a thing. And that's just the reality of it, man. So it has gotten worse for me from that perspective, because I'm like, when I know, like I said, I know I could be doing things differently, but like the reality is, no matter how good I think that I could be, I don't think there'd be a way for me to even sniff my numbers in any of these companies, because barely anybody was, to be quite frank with you. So yeah, that's where it comes from. My imposter syndrome is literally on my abilities.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a funny thing you bring up there on, like, I think some people that maybe not working in, I don't assume, something's very common that you see in a lot of companies, especially these startups and things like that, is that a lot of reps aren't hitting the number that they put forth. And it's almost like they putting out these numbers that aren't really attainable.
Yeah.
And it's almost like what's the purpose of that, other than, you got to call out a number to a shareholder and you got to roll up and so forth. But I also think that also doesn't help one of the main things that I always like to ask as I was going through this interview process is like, hey, how many people on the floor are hitting their number?
That's a massive question.
Like, how many people on the floor, like, and again, it's going to allow me to decide, like, hey, is this going to be a real number that I can actually hit? Or like the last company I worked for, nobody was hitting their number, and I'm coming in like, all right, so nobody's really hitting the number here, and it goes to show that, I will say, even as I was at the end, luckily I was hitting my, I won't say luckily, I was hitting my number, but not at the specific metric that they wanted me to hit it at, or not in a specific metric, not from a revenue standpoint, but just an acquisition standpoint. But anyways, they put these things out there, and I feel like maybe that's something that contributes to the anxiety of reps, is that you don't even know that you're in a lose-lose situation. You don't even know it until you're in it, and then now you're faced with the thing of like, am I going to quit or wait to get fired?
Right.
And that's kind of like back to our first topic, is like just I guess the quality of life when you dealing with these type of situations, especially like in the areas that we deal in as far as sales, is like, yeah, I could see that maybe these types of structure leads to that type of imposter syndrome that a lot of reps may be suffering from.
Yeah, and I know this is obviously a very heavy sales-driven conversation that we're having, because we're both in sales. But obviously, imposter syndrome can be anywhere. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be anything. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, if you are feeling that, it's having conversations with people who know you well, people who see you perform. Because most people, again, it's an imposter, it's a syndrome. It's not actually real. You actually aren't an imposter most of the time.
Well, let me ask you this. Yeah. Have you ever experienced or worked with somebody where you saw imposter syndrome?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure I have, but I can't think of anything that's really sticking out where I was like, whoa, this person is literally like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I don't think I know. And then and they actually are crushing it. I don't believe I can think of anything off the top of my head. I would have to think more about it. Have you?
I feel like, I guess from my definition of how I would look at imposter syndrome, like people like, I see it two ways. I see one way is like you not doing as well as, or you think you're doing terrible and you're actually doing well.
Yep.
And the other one is you think you're doing well, but you're actually not that good.
Yeah.
And I've seen that imposter syndrome from people.
100%. But is that imposter syndrome? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect right there.
That's fair. I see.
Like that, like the imposter syndrome, I believe it's the first one. That's it. It's you are thinking that you don't belong or you're not capable of a certain job, a task, or a certain position that you're in, when you are, in fact, more than capable and should be there and everything there. I think the opposite, what you're talking about, is that Dunning-Kruger
That's
effect.
That's fair.
Which is a great segue into our next topic, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which we talked about 2 episodes ago. I can't remember what it was, episode 2 maybe, but Dunning-Kruger effect is thinking you know more than what you actually know about a certain topic and having overconfidence about it. So on one level, we're just talking about not having enough confidence over your abilities or a topic or your job, whatever the case is. And now here we're talking about having overconfidence where it's detrimental, where it's really bad for not even yourself, maybe for society if you have a high position or whatever the case is. Now, why are we bringing this up, Herb, by the way, again? Tell us why we're bringing this up again.
The reason we're bringing this up is I'm sure if anybody's been on, on social media here recently, they've seen the viral clip of 100 men versus one gorilla. And before we even jump in this, years ago, Derek framed this question to me a little bit differently.
I did.
A little bit differently, and it's as good as how many 5-year-olds?
How many 5-year-olds?
How many 5-year-olds do I think I can
beat up,
whoop their ass,
whoop their ass, yeah.
How many do you think I can go? And my answer was about 100.
He said 100. I think he's wild. He's wild and Dunning-Kruger up the ass. I said I could probably fuck up about 30, 33 kids.
Drop it in the comment. How many do you think you can?
How many do you think you can do? Like 5-year-olds. Like how many? They all coming at you. I'm talking about 5-year-olds who have just taken a nap, who have all the energy in the world, and they just coming for you.
Pounded of Mountain Dew, a lot of candy, just
a lot of sugar, like absolutely nuts. And you're in a field. There's nowhere to hide, and they're just coming at you, surrounding from all things. Like how many could you before you get taken down by them? And he thinks he can do 100. I'm like, bro, you wild.
I'm a gorilla out here.
He thinks he's the gorilla. I say 30. For me, a guy my size, but I don't know. Let me know what you're thinking of. But this was a question that I had posed to Herb in the group like 8-9 years ago, and we argued about it all night.
Oh yeah.
His girlfriend thinks 12 is the limit, is the most she can do. Which, to be honest with you,
so now I got
possibly. But then this also, Herb hit me up and was like, "Have you heard the question about one gorilla versus 100 men, and who would win that fight?" And so there's been debates online this whole last week, the whole 9 yards. And so we wanted to bring it up too because we think it's interesting because on what we were talking about today, obviously with this topic around, especially the last part about imposter syndrome. So it's this whole Dunning-Kruger effect and really diving into it. And it's just more of like the overconfidence and the arrogance of people. Maybe arrogance is a strong word, but like just this overconfidence to even pose this question and kind of see what you guys thought. Now, what did you think? What do you genuinely think?
Honestly, in the beginning, I was like, there's no way. Honestly, in the beginning, I was siding with the gorilla. As I've gotten more information, I think that's changed. Yes,
and it's changed. I had a lot of questions. Herb and I were texting back and forth about this because it's hard to give a solid answer, even though to Herb's point, now that I've gotten some more information, we watched an interview with an actual gorilla scientist who was like,
what it's gotten to.
Who was like the guys would end up winning, and I was like, that's interesting. But like my question was also like, there's so many variables. Like, all right, like who are the guys? Like, are the guys 5'5"? Like who are the guys? Like, are these guys? They know that they're willing to die. Like that's it. There's the screws been turned on in their head, and they're willing to die. And this is literally about for science. They're like, nope, we're ready to die. We're all gonna go balls to the wall because everyone needs to be committed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be committed.
Okay.
So if you're committed, that's a whole different thing. Now, are these MMA fighters? Are these basketball players? Like, are we talking about killing the gorilla, or are we just talking about knocking him out? Just like are we talking about pain threshold? Like who's like I feel like there's so many variables to like really know, because now the question for me hasn't turned into can 100. I think 100 men can, but the question is how many men, what's the fewest amount of men that we would need to do it?
Okay.
Right? That's what I'm thinking.
I've seen some people saying somewhere between like I guess the 30 or 40 range. I like the phrase is, maybe Rome was doing it right.
Gladiator.
Maybe Rome was doing it right. Maybe I would say, how about this? As I phrase it to you, we take, some men that maybe are incarcerated.
Okay.
They fight for their life. They freedom.
Fuck human rights.
Now we got some motivated. Now we could take the motivation out. Now we got some motivated men.
It's terrible.
If you make it out of the arena, you walk free.
But hold on, but they can't be white collar, blue collar crime prisoners.
It depends on what your crime is. Yeah. We're gonna depend on your crime.
You can't have Bernie Madoff out there, bro.
Fuck it, put them in there. Let them be in the first wave. We could decide who we want to put in that first wave.
Right.
As I saw in one of the clips, some will die. Yes. We have to come. People will die in this.
Well, that's why people have to be committed. The men have to be committed.
Absolutely. And I think we should do it gladiator style. Open up the Coliseum. Hey, Trump, you hear this out here, but I know that's something you would love to do.
Yeah, bro.
Bring the art of the deal. Yeah, bring this together. Let's see what happens. Don't deport them. Put them in a cage. Let's let them fight a gorilla and see what happens.
Oh my God, that's fucked up. There's innocent people being deported right now, man.
Absolutely, unfortunately.
Oh man.
Shout out.
That's Yeah, that's fucking wild. I was watching this. And first of all, this is such a fucking stupid question. Leave it to men to come up with this shit, and leave it to Herb and I to fall into it and be men and talk about it. Because to me, the question is just more fascinating about why we think this way. Why men? It was funny because I was watching a video of a girl being like, you know what's a better question? 100 men versus a critical thought. And I was dying when she said that. I'm like, that's a good point. Because this is not critical thinking at all.
We'll never get the answer there. We're never going to win that one.
But like the reality is like, why are we thinking like this as men? Like, where is this coming from? And I'm not saying we have to have the answer, but we both are men here. So maybe let's give the audience a little idea as to why we think.
I think
Someone come up with this question?
I think it just goes back to like men, the biology of men, like higher testosterone. We crave contact. Sometimes men crave contact. We like fighting. We like
I'm not a fighter.
Yeah, but you love like get into a structured fight. You would love to spar or do MMA or like not saying that. MMA,
Yeah, I did a little boxing for a little bit.
Exactly. So we crave contact. Like you played soccer, you wanted to.
Yeah, true. Competition in a sense. It's a bit of a competition.
And that's almost, I think that's what goes back to it. Just that competition. We just, like I say, we fighters, man. This is what we grew up on. It's in our nature. It's in our biology, I would say.
I do, and I'm trying to figure out how this all falls back to the whole Dunning-Kruger kind of revisited, right? Because is it an overconfidence thing? Is it not? Actually, I think we overestimated the gorilla, to be honest with you, in this conversation, based off of the information that we found through like these scientists and stuff. And the answer is that we're never going to know because it's never going to happen.
I don't know. We've seen crazier things happen.
If you hear it happen in the jungle somewhere, just know that Herb set it up. Somehow figured out how to set that shit up.
The new Thriller in Manila.
But this also reminds me of that question. Like they've surveyed humans, obviously humans, but they've surveyed them on like what animals they think they can win in a fight with, and there's like 7% of men that think they can win a fight with a bear.
Oh hell no!
Literally, and I don't know if it's a number. It's not, the number's not zero. The number is some percentage of men literally were like, yeah, I can win a fight with a bear.
I mean, I'm assuming they were trying to do brown bears.
Grizzly bear. Sorry, grizzly brown bears are the same thing. Yes.
Oh no, you can't.
No way.
You can't.
I think those things might fuck up a gorilla.
It'll be interesting.
Oh,
it'll be interesting.
Man.
It'll be interesting.
That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like, come on.
Now, I also learned on this Dunning-Kruger effect that there is a level of it also that when you do learn something, the more you learn about a subject, the less you think you know about that subject.
The opposite.
The opposite of it.
Imposter syndrome.
Well, that's what I was asking. Like, like where you think as you learn how hard soccer is, per se, like, nah, you can look at somebody like you ain't going to no MLS.
That's fair.
Like, do you know how? Like, I don't care how talented you may. You can look at a young kid right now and be like, I know you're doing everything you're saying. I know you're, I know that you're putting in all these things, but you're not going. I can go watch a high school football game and somebody tell me that this person is supposed to be recruited or whoever it may be, and I can look at you and tell like, nah, you can't. That ain't.
That's fair.
And that's just because I have the information on how tough it is to do something. And that makes me feel like that. Then I can look at something and be like, yeah, it's a lot tougher to do that thing than somebody who doesn't have that information. Thing like, oh, all you got to do is just do this, and you can go and play D1 somewhere. And I don't think that's the way it works.
No, I mean that's fair. Look, man, it's all about human psychology. It's so fascinating to me, and it feels like now that we're doing more and more episodes, a lot of what we're talking about is just human psychology.
It really
and how people think, how we think, how society might possibly think, and what ideas are. So I love it. So Dunning-Kruger effect, fantastic. Yep. Before we close out this episode, obviously we want to always bring it back to some knowledge we want to bestow upon you guys. And it's funny because Herb and I were talking about it before the episode when we were planning, setting up, and we're like, well, what's our goal with this? And so I do want to like kind of reiterate so folks can understand what to expect. We started off thinking each episode, we're going to talk about something we learned about adulting to bestow upon you guys. We realized that'll be really hard to do every week.
We're not learning anything.
Yeah, so we're just dumb as shit, so we no knowledge. But we can do that, and some weeks we'll have that. But in reality, it might be just like a fun fact that we want to bestow, something fun, cool. Maybe it's not about adulting, about one of our passions or something, and we'll take it from there. That way you guys... the expectations are set and clear, and someone's not sitting there with a pen and a pad being like, all right, what am I going to learn today? And write it down. Because I know we have so many fans. So, Herb, I'm going to kick it over to you so I can think of mine.
Absolutely. So, I believe in one of the episodes we talked about, I'm a big fan of Drake, right?
Oh
I'm a
boy,
big
here we
fan of Drake.
go.
OVO, Drizzy
Oh
Drake.
no.
Regardless of what people want to say about the whole recent Kendrick stuff, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
a Drake stan. I'm a stand by it.
Fair.
And this is Drake. You need to see this. You need to get this. This is all for you. I can't believe this hasn't even happened yet. Drake's from Canada. Canada has very, a history with England and the Parliament.
Yep. Right.
Drake is OVO. The owl is his logo.
Yeah.
Guess what you call a group of owls?
OVO.
A parliament.
Oh.
Why hasn't Drake's? Nicki Minaj has or Taylor Swift has her Swifties. Beyonce has her Beehive. Rihanna has the Navy. Drake should have the Parliament.
Really?
He could
Do you
be the
think
monarch.
it should be the Parliament?
It should be the Parliament. It ties in. He's Canadian. They have a little kind of a Parliament set up there, and that's what he should have. He should have named his stands the Parliament. He'll be the monarch. I will be the Prime Minister. Drake.
God.
Since I came up with this.
Oh,
I don't
man.
get no credit.
The only thing I learned was that a group of owls is called Parliament. That's actually pretty cool. I didn't know that. That was really cool. But this dude is now consulting Drake about what he should name his fan.
So yeah, get that out there to Drizzy Drake, Champagne Poppy, and we can discuss my role within the Parliament.
Yeah, please do that, Drake. That way you can relate more to Taylor Swift and Rihanna and all their fans.
Yeah, so all the Drake stands are out there, and just know you're part of the Parliament now.
This guy. Parliament. Good to know. Love that. All right. From my perspective, it's more of like a fun fact, and I think some people may know this, but I also think it's a bit fascinating. But like, since 1973, no country has ever landed another man on the moon. Like, we've never done it once. So between like the years 1969 and 73 might not be the year, but in the early 70s is when we landed all men on the moon. Since then, no one has gone back. And part of the reason why no one has gone back is because we actually don't know how to get people back. And people are like, well, what do you mean? That means the moon landing was fake. It was like, no, we were using old technology that we no longer use. So we're having to rebuild new technology to now get human beings on the moon. So the Artemis moon program is happening right now. And the idea is to get people on the moon by 2030 again. Or
God, dog.
Yeah, to get people again, but it's going to be about 50 years since we've ever had another human being on the moon.
We're trying to go to Mars, and we haven't went back to the moon.
We haven't gone back to the moon. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
That is. So, I mean, let me ask you this, just for the fans out there: the moon landing was real.
The moon landing was real.
Okay,
the moon landing was real. They got all the proof. They got all. Yeah, the moon landing was real.
Like,
where the tapes at? But I think a lot of people go, "Oh, what do you mean you can't go back to the moon?"
That is kind of what I was thinking.
Like people are yelling that. They're like, what you mean? You did it before. You can't do it now in 2020. That means it was fake. And it was like, no, we can't use that old technology anymore. Like that technology is like ancient. Like I'm not going to play a new movie now on a fucking or play a freaking what's the word I want to say? Play a game from Xbox 5 or whatever on an Atari.
Yep.
Like we're not going to do that. We have to figure out the new, more efficient ways, and we need to realize that all space program, particularly NASA, is like a fourth of a cent of each taxpayer is what it goes to a year. So of the budget, it's probably like less than a percent of the actual U.S. budget, and we have the largest space program in the entire world. Yeah, we pretty much dwarf China, who's second, and then I think it's the USSR. And I think it amounts to like maybe $10 billion, $13 billion. So it's very, very tiny. And so our efforts have gone to other places.
You think it's just not sexy to go back to the moon? Like I know in the 70s it was like a big race to
60s,
space, landing somewhere. Or in the 60s, like we want to land someone, we the first to do that. Now that we accomplished that, do you feel like it's just not sexy to go to the moon? There's nothing that.
So there's a couple reasons. JFK rallied the country around getting us to go to the moon. And so many of our dollars, not even so many more of our dollar during that time went to the sports program. And once we got to the moon first, because it was in the name of the Russian space war against Russia. You know, the Cold War was crazy. So we're like, we got to get there before the USSR. So American patriotism. Rah, rah, rah. Once it happened, people were like, and they literally cut the space budget, NASA budget by like half. Because we already did this, like blah, blah. And so, this aurora of it kind of went down. I don't even think I used the right word, but the aura of it kind of went down. And that's the reason why. But it seemed like things were picking up. Unfortunately, with this administration, it's been slashed again because science is apparently the enemy. And so we'll
Those
kind of
damn facts.
yeah, those damn facts. Those damn liberal scientists apparently. But I did think it was interesting because it's like, man, we talking about the moon and no one has been back since 1973 or whatever that date is.
Right.
No one.
That is crazy.
It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that. Like I said, we're trying to go to Mars. We talk about inhabiting Mars and things like that, and we can't even go to the moon.
We can't even go. Haven't put a man on the moon, so it'll be nuts. But, anyways, that was something I learned. I hope you guys learned from that. We appreciate y'all watching and listening in, tuning in, whatever the case is. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Big shout outs, Herb. I appreciate it, broski.
Man, we did it again.
Thank you, broski.